Have you ever been scrolling through photos of some stunning villa in Bali and just thought, wow, what does it actually take to build that? Not just the dream, but the real nitty-gritty process. Well, today we're going to break it all down, from the very first piece of paper to that final incredible view. So let's really focus on this question. Beyond all of the glossy photos and the beautiful marketing, what's the actual playbook? How do you turn an empty plot of land into a luxury home in one of the most sought-after places on the entire planet? You'd probably guess the whole thing starts with a blueprint, maybe a bulldozer, but you'd be wrong. The entire multi-million-dollar, super complex process of building a modern villa in Bali, it all starts right here, with this single, deceptively simple-looking piece of paper. Okay, let's get into it. Here's the game plan. We're going to start with that all-important piece of paper, then we'll dig into the data about the ground itself. We'll see how that creates the building skeleton, understand the business thinking behind it all, and finally, we'll take a tour inside the finished villa. Right. First things first, before you can even think about breaking ground, you have to secure the legal ground. And this isn't just a suggestion, It is the absolute bedrock of any legitimate building project. Get this wrong, and nothing else matters. So, every project like this begins by giving the land a legal identity. It's like a birth certificate for the property. The official certificate you can see here, it pinpoints the exact location, Benoa in South Kuta. Then the survey map confirms the size, exactly 1,500 square meters. Every single detail is locked in and documented before a shovel ever touches the dirt. This brings us to a really key legal term you have to know in Indonesia. Hak Guna Bangunan, or HGB. Now, this isn't about owning the land forever. It's about securing the exclusive right to build on that land. You can think of it as the legal key that completely unlocks the land's potential. And in this case, that key was officially handed over to the developer, PT BaliI Invest. And, getting these rights is a marathon, not a sprint. This isn't some overnight deal. The paper trail started with a land survey way back in February 2023, and it took over a year before the developer was finally officially registered as the new rights holder. Each one of these dates is a critical, non-negotiable step in that legal chain. Okay, so the paperwork is solid. The lawyers are happy. Now the project moves from the world of legal documents to the physical world. The developer has the right to build, but the massive question is still hanging in the air. Can they actually build here? And to answer that, engineers have to literally dig in and understand what's under their feet. And that leads us to this next critical piece of the puzzle, the Soil Investigation Report. Now, I know it looks like a dense, super technical document, but its whole purpose is actually pretty simple. It's designed to answer the single most important question for any build. Is the ground underneath us safe and stable enough to hold up our building? So what you're looking at here is some data from what's called a Sonder test. Sounds complex, but the idea is really straightforward. The engineers are basically pushing a big metal cone into the ground and measuring how hard they have to push. And you can see it right there in the numbers. The deeper they go, the more resistance they hit, until it maxes out at just 1.2 meters down. So after all that technical testing, all those numbers, all those charts, what's the takeaway? It all boils down to these 4 simple words. The ground is solid. This is the big green light the entire engineering team was waiting for. And further tests, these boring tests, confirmed it. What they found was fantastic news for a builder. There's a layer of clay and sand sitting right on top of solid coral rock. That's a strong, stable, natural base to build on. Plus, they didn't run into any groundwater, which can be a huge headache. So, the land was officially declared aman, the Indonesian word for safe for construction. All right, so the land is legally theirs and the ground is geologically sound. Now the project moves from just analyzing to actually designing. The next step is to create the structural skeleton, a design that's going to stand safely on that solid ground for decades and decades. And this is the part I love, because this is where all that abstract science becomes concrete reality. Literally. On the left, you've got the theory, these super complex engineering formulas. And on the right, that's the direct result. All that math translates to a very specific design for the foundation,
reinforced concrete footings, exactly 120 by 120 centimeters, placed at a depth of 1.2 meters. The level of detail here is it's incredible. The structural analysis plans for every single force the building is ever going to face. It's not just the weight of the building itself. They're calculating the strength of the concrete, the grade of the steel rebar, and even something they call the live load, which is literally the weight of people and furniture, right down to the force you create just by walking up the stairs.
Okay, so we've got the legal rights, check. We have solid ground, check. And we have a safe structural plan, check. But that's just a building. For it to be a successful project, you need a business plan. You've got to ask, who is this villa for? And why are we building it right here, right now?
And this quote from the developer Maxim Labtev, it gives us a really fascinating insight. He says they intentionally decided to self-fund their first few projects. And this wasn't because they couldn't find investors. No, it was a deliberate strategy to learn the local market inside and out, to personally hit every speed bump and navigate every nuance before they took anyone else's money.
So who is this all for? Well, their research gave them a crystal clear picture. This isn't just about building a nice house and hoping someone buys it. It's a product that has been specifically engineered for a mix of successful professionals, international families, and savvy investors who all want to be in the prestigious Nusa Dua area. And for that 20% slice of the pie, the investors, here's the hook. This is the number that makes their ears perk up. The developer projects that a buyer could potentially resell the villa for a 15% markup in as little as 6 months. So it's not just a home, it's an asset that's designed for a pretty quick and significant return. Okay, we have laid the legal, the geological, the structural, and the business foundations. Now we get to the really exciting part. Let's finally step inside the villa and see how all of this meticulous planning actually comes to life in the final design.
So let's do a quick walkthrough, shall we? The property is one of 10 detached villas in the complex. You step inside, and the first floor is all about open-plan living and socializing, with a guest bedroom tucked away. You head upstairs to the second floor, and that's the private space, with the main bedrooms. But the real crown jewel is that final step up to a rooftop terrace that's been engineered for one thing: soaking in that incredible panoramic ocean view.
And when I say the plan is detailed, I mean it's staggering. It goes so far beyond just walls and windows. They're specifying the exact brands for furniture and appliances. They've got dedicated schematic drawings for every single light switch and plumbing fixture in the entire house. This isn't just a design. It's a guarantee that from the covered parking right up to that panoramic view of Mount Agung, absolutely nothing has been left to chance. So we've gone on this whole journey, right? From a stack of legal papers to soil reports, structural calculations, market analysis, and finally, the architectural blueprints. Every single step is a calculated, data-driven decision, which kind of leaves you with one last thought, doesn't it? Perhaps the real secret to building in a place that feels like paradise is a process that is anything but relaxed.